Hello again, and welcome back to another episode of Adventures in Book Hunting. Um, this episode centers around a visit I got to make to a local branch public library that I'd never been to before. There's a county over just across the state line in Virginia that has four public library branches basically under the same system. Uh, the main branch and the branch closest to me are both historically places where I've done a lot of very successful book hunting. And the branch nearest me continues to be a great source of books, both to trade out and to collect. The main branch of this library system has been pretty much closed for remodeling and reconstruction. Their facility had some structural issues, and it's probably going on 2 years that the main branch has actually been closed temporarily for 2 years plus. But in any event, the uh, the other two branches, one I visited one time. It's a little farther out, harder for me to find an excuse to get all the way out there. And finally, the fourth branch, which I just visited this week, had never been to before. I imagined it was going to be probably the smallest of the four branches, and that proved correct. Like I said, managed to go there, walked in, and it was indeed a very small facility. Um, was greeted by a very kind librarian, and uh, and I looked around. Did not appear that they had any books for sale or for free. No free cart, no sale cart that I could see. Not to waste the time, because even if I'm not getting books from a library, it's always nice to see what kind of facilities they have, what kind of materials they have, resources. Um, in any library close to me, I like to go to the local section, fiction by local authors, local history, see if there's anything of interest. And I spent a few minutes going through that part of the collection. They had a guest book, which I, of course, signed. Um, and then after, like I say, spending some amount of time, going through, at least the local section that they had, I decided to go on my way. And as I was going out the door, I noticed that I had overlooked the sale cart. They didn't indeed have one small sale cart. So, three rows of books on a library return cart. And I found one book immediately that I knew I'd want to buy, and another book that I thought would be a good donation. I got those, and as I was looking through the others, the librarian indicated to me, if you've got some time, we've got more books for sale. And she pointed out some bins at the bottom of the stacks in the main room of the library, black canvas, well, boxes containing many, many books. There probably were about 10 of these canvas bins. So I thanked her very kindly and commenced going through all of those bins. And I managed to find more than a few books that I decided to get. I think I wound up getting 10 books. And I think I was charged, I believe, right at $4 for these 10 books, which I thought was well worth it. And I just wanted to share uh, the things I found with you there at this library visit. The first book is one of the ones I got off the sale cart. It is The Dark is Rising, and this is actually a omnibus of Pentology by Susan Cooper. It's um, contemporary fantasy for middle grade through young adult readers. Uh, the first book, well, let's just read you the titles. I had read one of these before, and I don't think I realized that I'd read the second book out of the five in the series. But the books are Oversea Under Stone, The Dark is Rising, Green Witch, The Grey King, and Silver on the Tree. And I have had several of these books, but I believe the only one I've actually read is The Dark is Rising. As I said, contemporary fantasy. set in various parts of England, uh, modern day. Now, these novels were written, I believe the first in, oh, well, let's see right here, 1965. The others were published basically 1 year apart, beginning in 1973 and ending in 1977. Um, uh, it's fantasy with a somewhat Arthurian kind of flavor to it. Um, like I say, it was not something I've read all of, but I know there is an audience for this kind of stuff, for this particular work. I know at least one of the books got a Newbery Award for uh, literature for children. Um, and it's an omnibus, and omnibuses tend to go well. The worst thing about getting a series is if you don't find the first one, there's some reluctance to start it. And I probably would not have read The Dark is Rising if I'd realized at the time that it was the second book in a series. But in any event, I think it'll be a nice addition to the Hatter's inventory. So it's gonna be a book I donate. In fact, with one kind of exception, perhaps two, all of these books are gonna go to the Hatter. Yeah, that's the first one. The second one I found on the sale cart is an Amish romance novel from the Love Inspired line. Uh, Not my thing, but Amish romance is a fairly popular subgenre of the romance genre. Hatter has multiple customers who really enjoy these books. So whenever I can find, particularly one in this good a shape, as you can see, you know, it's ex-library, of course. But yeah, it's just in really good shape, and I don't think they'll have any problem finding selling it to one of their customers who appreciates this kind of literature. Um, in any event, those were the two from the sale cart. The other books I got going through the various Canvas bins. Um, just kind of, and I've kind of grouped them, not in any particular order, but just kind of by category. I found these two very nice Barnes and Noble Classics edition of Jane Austen novels, Persuasion and Sense and Sensibility. Um, and as you can see, these also are in very good shape. And, classics sell well. And just, going to the Hatter often. I always try and keep an eye on what their inventory looks like. They should have room for these. And Jane Austen is still fairly popular. Um, uh, and like I say, these are good classic editions. I already have both of these in Signet Classic format, so of course they're not staying with me. Um, I've got quite a few Barnes and Noble Classics. I don't think I currently have any in mass market style editions. But in any event, I don't need an extra edition, so those will be going to the Hatter. The next book I found and got is quite a shift. It is Helter Skelter by Vincent Bugliosi, who was the main prosecutor or the lead prosecutor in the Charles Manson murder cases, um, 1969 and 1970. This is, of course, his account of the trial, and well, actually trials, where he was able to prosecute and convict Charles Manson for murder. Here's high-profile murders, um, and like I say, it's fascinating reading. Documents, of course, the murders committed by the Manson family and their aftermath. Um, just some insight into truly the face of evil. Um, of course, true crime, particularly, well, I guess we call it classic true crime. Uh, this is a book I'm sure the Hatter will be able to sell quite readily. I think I've hauled it before, but not an edition quite as nice as this one. So, like I say, that one's going to be a donate. something a little different. They've got some of that kind of thing, but I'm sure they can make good use of that. Um, the next book is one I may have to sell them on, but I don't think so. I don't think I'll have to sell too hard. Nick Hornby, A Long Way Down. He's written several best-selling novels. Fever Pitch. Um, what was the other one? High Fidelity. Yeah. This is probably one of his. I know it was a bestseller, but probably wasn't. Certainly one of the best of his bestsellers. It has an interesting premise, though. Um, uh, Very mild spoiler here because it happens very early in the book. Premise is four people climb to the top of a very tall building that has a reputation of being a place where people commit suicide by jumping from this building. Four people go there on the same day with that intention to end their lives. And the book details both what happened and what does not happen. Hornby, I know, said this isn't a book about suicide. It's a book about what happens when you decide not to commit suicide. But no, I've not read this one. I read High Fidelity. I think that's the name of it. One of his other novels, but I've not read this one. I did see the film adaptation. Oh, probably been close to 10 years ago. The only actor I remember in it was Pierce Brosnan. He was in the movie version, was one of the four people who had decided that, he was going to end it all. But, of course, did not. Um, uh, and just glancing at some of the blurbs on the back, I do like this one. This one kind of jumps out. It's like The Breakfast Club rewritten by Samuel Beckett. Um, what makes the book work is Hornsby's refusal to give an inch to sentimentality or cheap inspirational guff. And having seen the film, I kind of get that. I never thought of it in that term, but yeah, I can see that that's probably a fairly apt description or analogy. In any event, that one's of course going to go to the bookstore. The next one is one I might keep, but if I do, it's going to be because it's going to replace something I already have. So I will not have a net gain of a book. And that is In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. Um, uh, and I didn't check to see which was printed more recently, but I already have this book. Here's the edition I currently own. I read this last year as part of a buddy read, and also got to watch the movie adaptation of this book. But I'm thinking very seriously about donating the one I already had and keeping this edition. So I just think, basically, I like the cover of this one a little more, and it's a little more beat up, as you can see. It's a little more worn, and the one that I actually read, it's in much better shape, even though I think the cover's a little bit dull. But in any event, I'm only going to keep one of them, and most likely it'll be the one I got from this library sale this past week. And of course, Truman Capote's In Cold Blood, I guess it is part of a theme here. It's also based on true events. A murder of a family in the Midwest in the late 50s. But a very compelling psychological story about two people who, in my opinion, commit some very gruesome, horrible, violent acts that they probably would not have committed if they didn't have the synergy of their inner relationship. If either one of them had set off to do this on his own, I don't think it would have happened. But the two of them together just kind of, like I say, had this synergistic effect that wound up with the deaths of four people, and left a scar on this small community. In any event, I just, I don't know. There's something about that cover photograph makes me want to keep it and donate the other one. Um, The next book I found is a novel by David Sedaris, Dress Your Family in Corduroy and Denim. Now, I already have a Sedaris novel. I've got Me Talk Pretty One Day. Okay. I have a friend who has recommended David Sedaris. They really appreciate him as a writer. And I don't recall which of these books. I'm pretty sure it was one of these books they wanted me to read first. Um, the thought was that I will appreciate David Sedaris' humor. And uh, I know that my friend who recommended Sedaris to me is a subscriber and will probably watch this video. So when you see this, let me know which one I should start with. Um, I trust their taste in literature, so I will certainly follow through and read probably both of these eventually. Um, but unless one of these books or both really grip me, probably eventually will donate them. David Sedaris is a fairly popular writer, so hopefully, the store can use them and sell both of them eventually. And finally, kind of a surprise find of this trip. Two books by the same author, and I was immediately drawn to them because the store always has a dearth of young adult fiction, um, especially young adult fiction by popular writers in that genre. And few, uh, would outshine this particular writer, and that is John Green's The Fault in Our Stars, which of course was adapted a few years ago into a major motion picture, and one of his more recent books, Turtles All the Way Down. Now, as you can see, this one has a sticker on it, which I actually did not notice until after I'd left the library. And so I checked to see, well, if indeed, of course, the sticker says signed copy. So I looked inside for the autograph, and there was one. And like I said, this is a very nice copy. I checked. It is first edition, first printing of the book, and purportedly signed by John Green. And if that is the case, then we're talking about a book with a retail value, practically speaking, probably around $25. I did a little quick research. I found one copy for much cheaper than that. All the other copies, especially copies in very good condition. The only issue I really have with this one, looking through it, it's hard to tell. You can see there's bend in the spine here. But other than that, a little bit of crinkling in the dust jacket. But, a copy in very good shape. So if that is indeed his autograph, then yeah, you're talking about a book probably worth about $25. Did a little research into known autographs from John Green, and apparently, when John Green does autographs, he does like to use Sharpies and felt point pens, and oftentimes colored ones. Saw lots of examples that looked very much like that. And I don't know, it might be. I tend to think this is probably what it purports to be, and so we might do a little more research on it. But this isn't my thing. um, I did see the film, but this will be a nice little find that I can send to the bookstore. Um, and these are the kinds of things you like to get. I like to get to the bookstore because it's a nice addition to their inventory. Now, immediately told some family members about this one. That, wow, look what I found. It made the whole trip way worthwhile. And then I picked up the second one that I found. Turtles All the Way Down. Um, don't know that much about this one, but I did see a live show put on by John Green and his brother Hank, where they talk about this book and the origin of the title for the book. But in any event, once again, this one I think is just in perfect shape. Just pristine. And checking it, I checked, and it too is, first printing, first edition. And what I didn't notice the first time through, but after I was talking with, like I say, family members about my first edition signed copy of The Fault in Our Stars, I noticed that this one is autographed as well. Uh, Now, but strangely, let's say doing just a little quick research to try and guess the value of this one, not a whole lot really. Um, there are many, many vendors that you can find very easily on the internet who are selling this book in similar condition, or maybe not quite as good condition, autographed for less than $10. A little surprised, but this is a newer book, and I would venture to say, at least in my own opinion, that uh, The Fault in Our Stars is more popular. It's probably sold more copies, and of course, it was adapted into a major motion picture. But in any event, it capped off a very, very nice visit and hunt at a local, very small, very rural branch library that I'd never gotten around to visiting until this very week, and was so glad that I did. And in any event, 10 books, $4, with value a whole lot higher than that. It was a good hunt. In any event, I think I'll leave you there. All of these books, some very quickly, and others might take a little bit longer, will wind up at the Hatter Bookshop, the best independent used bookstore, in my opinion, in West Virginia. So if you happen to be in Southern West Virginia, please visit. Who knows, we might get to say hello. But with that, I will leave you, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you again really soon. Thank you.